This is the Map Scout Challenge brought to you by OnX, where we examine the map, assess features like terrain, habitat, and access, then go out and rip it apart in person.
And right now we're going to show you the results, no holds barred, so that next time you go to public land, you have the confidence to scout, hunt, and kill whatever you're after.
Seriously just happened.
We are in Pennsylvania doing a Map Scout Challenge. We're actually at a Dollar General right now, but we're fixing to head to the Allegheny National Forest and head to the hills. We're gonna follow the river up in there, go to the mountains, an area that we are not very comfortable in, we are not familiar with, but we're gonna use some of the stuff that we've learned map scouting through the years, some of the stuff we've learned hunting in the South, and then some of the stuff that we have researched to try to figure out where we can find whitetails,
Woodchucks,
groundhogs,
bears,
grouse, hooters.
What are all these birds that are coming in?
These birds are flying through here.
What we're going to focus on today are three things we've decided. Creek bottoms would be something that we'd be looking at. Of course, whitetails inhabit creek bottoms across America. We're also going to be looking at saddles because it's an easy place in this heavy ridge country for deer to cross over the ridges. And then we're going to also be looking at clear cuts because that is the food source in this area. There's not much ag production like soybeans and corn. And I guess there might be some rough grouse there. Brian would be excited about that. And he's going to be also doing his own little upland map scouting challenge. So let's get down the road.
So, Tyler, you were talking about the three things that we're going to be looking for up here in Allegheny. What were they?
Creek bottoms, saddles, and clear cuts.
Okay, so one of those three things I'm real familiar with, and that's a creek bottom. So I looked on the map yesterday and found a really promising creek bottom. It's got about 200 foot elevation, 250 foot elevation drop right from the road right down there to it. But it's actually really open down there, and you can even see, I got it marked. There's a couple trails right there that are probably crossing that kind of marshy creek bottom, kind of coming off of that big hardwood hill and crossing the other side. So I think that's an exciting place to go. And then saddles, which is something we've kind of explored before, like in Oklahoma and even to an extent Kansas, and then also like our
Iowa.
Yeah, Iowa, that's true. And then elk hunting as well, you can see the benefits of that. There's one good one right here that I thought we might check out, but I'm really kind of unsure what's going to happen there early season. I know in the rut it'll be a good place, but I don't know about now. But we'll go in there and check it out and just see what we think, because finding rut sign is also good because we're trying to determine where these bucks will be in November to hunt as well. And then the clear cut stuff, there actually is an OnX layer for clear cuts. I think I have it turned on. If not, I did last night. But you can, there it is. See, you can see that the 2014 numbers right there. That's a place where they had clear cut, or actually done timber cuts. I'm sorry. So it looks like they did selective harvest in here, which probably means that there's light getting to the forest floor here, and it's going to be a lot different up on top of this ridge than say what it is just in the old growth timber. So I think that's going to be a really good spot.
Ryan, can you talk a little bit about the what age a good clear cut is for the grouse?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on, your geographic location in the broader scheme of things. But up here, north of the Mason-Dixon line, I'm going to say my favorite cuts to hunt for rough grouse going to be in that 7 to 11 years, really. 7 sometimes can be early, depending on what kind of climate you're in. But, right in that, I'm always looking in that, I'd say primary 8, 9 year old clear cut area is where those trees are starting to come back up. Saplings about the size of your wrist or my wrist.
So the diameter of the saplings matter?
For me, it matters only, and that's what I associate with the age of the tree. So a lot of times, especially when you're out there and say you don't have OnX or you haven't got it yet and you haven't turned on that map layer to see how old those cuts are, I'm looking for popple trees or any kind of tree really that's that 7 to 15-year age tree, and that's a tree that's basically the size of my wrist. That's in my head. That's what I associate it with. So that's what I'm looking for.
So this 2013, 2014, those are kind of right in there on it, right?
Those should be prime, unless they're evergreen, and that's not necessarily to say that there wouldn't be rough grouse in evergreen, but the food sources in evergreen probably the same for whitetail.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys talk that way. I'm assuming that evergreen's not something I'm really looking for in terms of hunting rough grouse, and probably the same for you guys. I would assume on deer, right?
Pretty much. I mean, they're going to spend some time there. But
They need food, and so that's one thing we're going to key in on those clear cuts especially, but also in that creek bottom because there's going to be lots of forbs down in there.
Yeah.
So if we can find food, especially this time of year, that'll help us to assume what ridges these deer are hopefully bedding on and what saddles they're using.
All three of them. Nice, you got them all in frame too. There they go. They're gonna all end up right there, Tyler. Go to the right a little bit. I'm almost. Come on, man.
What?
Somebody take a bite of this.
Does it smell
Take
alright?
one for the team. It smells great.
I'm not doing it.
No, it smells. It's not even slimy. No, that was a legit one. No,
It doesn't smell bad. Is it really?
no.
Bear Duke right there.
It's not bear trapping season,
So this is our place we're going to be looking at a saddle. We're hoping that we will see some rut sign in here is kind of what we're hoping. Maybe some rubs, some scrapes. We're not sure if this is a place that'll be getting much use right now or not, but with all the rain, if there's tracks there, then we know they're pretty recent. So
We actually have some inside information from a Facebook friend of mine named Jimmy. He lives not far from here. A real helpful guy. I haven't talked to him much until recently. I just remembered he lived up here. He mentioned all the things that we had pointed out, but also said be mindful of the overlooked spots that are really, really close to the road that are kind of thick. On the way in here, we actually saw an apple tree like right on the corner of Public. Like on Public, huge food source.
had seen deer really pretty close right
to
there
that.
too.
And kind of what's going through my head right now, at least, is that possibly we could go up here, see good rut sign, know that like there's at least a decent concentration of deer in this area. Because I think you mentioned this a lot sometimes that you could have pockets of higher population densities.
Yeah.
If we have that here, there's a chance we go set up a camera on that apple tree down there, get every deer in a 200-acre area right here, and then know you can go up there and kill them from the rut.
Sounds good.
So let's go up there and see if that saddle actually is decent, because I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
Down to some rubs right here. Oh dude, we're like right below the saddle. We're good at this. I needed to find these about right now too because I am a sweaty Betty. Rub. Take a picture to show what rubs in Pennsylvania look like. And that one in the back is also rubbed. There's Tyler for scale. Those rubs are about 4 foot tall. Top of the rubs, I think, aren't they? 4 or 5?
Yeah.
It's cool. Buck sign.
More rubs. Around the edge of this thicket going kind of straight across the saddle here. It's a wide saddle, but it's good and flat. When I think about generally where whitetails are going to be, with as many as we saw on the way in near roads, I think what you're going to have is like, you can come back in here and spend a lot of time breaking down sign way back in and probably shoot one of the bigger deer in the area. But if you just want to shoot deer or shoot a buck or whatever, get some meat, whatever it might be, deer are going to live near grass fields that are in the bottom down there where people are.
That's what I'd be saying.
Yeah.
The lack of, not that there's not some stuff for them to eat up here, because there are smokes, which but that's fall stuff. But
Yeah.
you know, I think there's easier food source right
think
now
so,
this
too.
time of year. So I'd go. There's just, you know, why would they be up there? Yeah.
Apples. Clear cuts, apples,
Yeah.
creek bottoms.
We'll get, yeah.
I say y'all go with bailing out and going down and finding something else.
There's nothing else that we need to explore. I mean, we proved that there are rubs in the saddle, and I think that's kind of what we set out to do.
Yeah.
You could set up a camera here, and it would take some pictures of some bucks in October, November, December. But right now, who knows?
Maybe not. Yeah. Good rubs. And there's several of them in here. A couple back here. These are all from this year. And as you can see, this is like a shorter spruce thicket. It's dark, sits kind of in a hole right here. There's more rubs back over there too. There's just not, this is for sure, in my opinion, where a deer or a buck beds, and probably a good one during the season. Because a lot of times what a deer will do in its bed, and I've seen this before in Texas in 2019, the buck I killed, when he got up from his bed, I mean, he spent like 20 minutes plus just making little kind of scrapes, licking limbs, rubbing trees, and that's just what they do in a bedding area, which is a lot of times where there's so many concentrated. You can see rub lines where a deer's traveling, say on top of a ridge or something like that, or you tend to see just kind of a lone rub or two, but there's so many in here for sure. Buck bedding, KC.
Is he bedding down in there, or is he bedding up here in the thicket behind it?
I don't know.
And he's headed down.
I would say he's bedding in this little hole where nobody ever comes, you know? Things run on that side, things run on that side. There's more rubs back in there too.
Yeah.
I'm sure day to day he beds wherever he wants, pretty much right.
But
in
you
here.
could set up a camera here and actually get a picture of a buck.
Oh yeah.
It's cool. Maybe shoot one if you set up a tree stand.
I guarantee you could.
Ooh, did you say? Oh, have
Yeah, you could have a chance. I would feel good about sitting here in the fall, and I am a skeptic of a lot of spots. Like I might have to come back and visit this one day. I'm gonna mark that on the map for sure.
Probably film Tyler. Okay. What'd you think? Yeah.
Actually film him.
Yeah, see, that is a big old tree. Goodness gracious. How many are on it? A bunch. Dude. That's cool. So,
bunch of apples on it?
yeah, a bunch of apples, man.
Can't see them.
They're up there high, kind of in the sun.
Gotcha.
But I mean, I bet you there's thousands. We're not far at all from where we just found all that rut sign. Where are we at? Right there. Dang, it's just...
There's that tree behind it, an apple.
See what straight line distance is to it.
Straight line from there to the rub is 0.68 miles.
Ain't
That ain't
nothing.
nothing for a mountain buck.
No.
Dude, I'm dropping a food source dot right here, and unless we find something bad to the bone, we're putting a camera in there and we're getting all the deer's pictures.
Yeah. And that's the thing is we've got this.
And you know,
this food source here, but we got a bunch of habitat back up there on the hill, you know.
yeah, there's habitat all around down here too.
Yeah.
Though, you know?
There might be more down in there
I
behind.
know. I'm about to get out and look for deer sign right quick, but I'm gonna put food source here right quick. And look, the food source thing is actually an apple.
Oh baby.
Baby.
First time we've ever been able to do that.
I know. I'm gonna put, that's a close, oh, I'm gonna put red. Oh, it already is red, never mind. Put green.
Mm-hmm.
Take a photo of that.
Crab apple on the other side of the road.
I know, man.
Mm-hmm.
Apple tree, use photo.
There's a big apple
Yeah, there is.
back there.
Yeah, there is.
Big, you see a big apple fruit? So this is an old apple orchard down through here.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. This makes me hot.
I'm gonna come park down here at the corner in the shade of that, just to be off the main road.
Okie dokie. They're gonna start dropping. Well, I don't know. They're going to start dropping in the fall. They're fall
If they
fruit.
at least drop into close to October, then those deer are going to get on a pattern. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Sour.
Kind of not much to it, but it won't be long until I mean, it's palatable now. A deer would eat that right now.
They're all through here, Casey. Both sides of the road.
Woo!
All through here, man.
Sound like the owl.
I think there's some even down towards the bottom.
I just want to bugle. Dude, if we had that, oh man, look at all the apples on this tree.
Those are kind of red from the sun.
Ooh, got a little blush on them. So, Brian says there's a parking lot right there, which I feel like there's not a deer here looking at that, like a truck parked there too often. But they're gonna come down here and eat at night for sure. So maybe the strategy is to hang a camera here and see like where the deer come from more often. You know, we're in a creek bottom, right?
Oh, yeah.
Brian brought that up.
Yeah, this is a creek bottom. We've got running water literally right here.
Yeah.
We've got this goldenrod stuff all around, which is being browsed, as you can see right here.
How about that?
And also provides some cover, and it's just kind of that
Yeah.
lower elevation forb type stuff that they've got down in here. And then, you know, you think about from a hunting practical or application, I guess, being here in the middle of the week, in the evening, especially like on a Wednesday after things have slowed down after the weekend or something like that, or a Tuesday, you've got like a good chance that there's not much traffic going through here, and deer visiting later in the week before the weekend again, once they've kind of calmed back down and gotten into their...
Brian, when are these apples gonna drop? October, November?
I think they probably started these aren't manicured, you know, orchard trees. So
Yeah.
I'm going to say they're going to start a little earlier than that. Maybe.
But there'll still be some around come October 1st, huh?
Yeah, because first hard frost is definitely going to put them all down, but
I didn't even know that.
When is that going to be?
I don't know.
Guess we can look up- we can
what
look up
zone
first
are
one.
you at home? 6B?
yeah, I think that's what we are. And so hard frost for us can come in September.
Yeah, but usually probably early October. Average.
That's when I'd really be, almost, guaranteed by then that we're done.
Yeah.
If they're still dropping in the 1st of October or real close to, you got a good chance of still seeing a deer right here.
Got a good chance of me grabbing a snack on the way to the stand. This is awesome.
This is cool.
Unless we find something bad to the bone at this clear cut or this, I guess, selective cut, I'm team apple tree when it comes to hanging cameras.
yeah.
So there's a good chance that we hang a camera by the road.
How cool is
And
that,
get big
dude?
bucks.
How cool is that?
That's a big dog right there.
Man, God, they're so good.
Look at that. That's a big wild raspberry, man.
It tastes just like a store-bought too. Like it's just every bit as good as a big juicy. Look at these little hangers.
I like them hang dangers.
Big old.
That's a cool animal right there, man.
That butterfly?
Well,
You have your
I'm telling
phone.
you, those things are cool looking up close. You get the
And look at all the tiny ones on every single bloom.
There's a little flying ant or something right there. You see that thing?
Man, I wish I could grow a 100-acre field of milkweed.
So my buddy Jimmy said that some type of moth had decimated the oak trees. There's a bunch of these guys around, and if you look up, all the white oaks are just now budding out, which is a really weird thing. But I bet you it's regrowth. And from all these caterpillars, you can see their shed nasties right here on this tree. They've been hammering the oak trees. So that means that acorns aren't going to be really a target, at least in this area, because all these oak trees got decimated by that. So that clear cut might be kind of the one food source. Huh. This shows that that is actually the inside of a clear cut.
Tyler, try one of these for us. It's just a little bite. You just put it.
Make it in my mouth and back over there. I'll eat it.
How far back?
Right there.
gotta close your eyes and
No.
wide
No.
open. Tilt back.
Dude, look at that. That is the tastiest looking mushroom I've ever seen. Dude, you gotta be able to eat that. Right there is where we marked all those apples and we scattered around. There's deer tracks, good apple trees, but we've seen that there are also apples right here on this side where we are, right there. And I just kind of wonder if there's hidden apples a little bit further off the road right here that kind of lead back to this thicker stuff. So I think what we should do is just hop in to make sure we're gonna hang this camera in the right spot. Pop in right there, look around, just see, come back out here if there's nothing good, and hang a camera right in there where all this old orchard is and get a big buckle camera. Sounds good to me.
That's a sizable daggum apple.
Yeah.
I've been eating here. So there's a bunch of kind of bare dirt and fresh tracks right here. These apples have been falling a little bit already. I don't know. Have you seen a bite taken out of any of them? I guess they eat the whole thing probably when they pick them up.
That tastes like a Granny Smith. Sour.
Is it?
Bear Dude can hear too.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
It would be cool, wouldn't it?
Yeah. There's a bobcat print right there too.
Sure is. Trying to get him a fawn?
Maybe so.
Yeah, there's a bunch right there too, man.
Wow, really? Oh yeah. I'm real solid right there.
Possibly that right
Yeah.
there is the spot.
Yeah, I think so.
There you go. Put it up higher. Just like 4 inches higher. Maybe?
Yeah, maybe. All right, I'm gonna mark it on the phone, and then we going back to Ohio.
Okay, so Pennsylvania was awesome. We loved going over there into the Allegheny and seeing all the cool things that were in the woods there. Mushrooms, all kinds of stuff. I mean, there was like 30 different types of mushrooms.
Lots of mushrooms, lots of Efts. If you know what that an Eft is.
Yeah.
And actually, there was a lot of apple trees, which I was very surprised about.
Yes, there were. There was that was something to take note of for sure. You know, and a lot of those apple trees are probably planted by people back in the day, and so I would say don't be afraid to hunt close to the road.
Yeah, absolutely. And quite honestly, there was a lot more deer there than what I thought there would be.
Yeah. We definitely saw a lot of sign where it was thicker, so I think the thicker the better.
And we were in there looking for thick stuff, and particularly we looked for timber cuts, and those are hard to figure out.
Yeah. Also around creeks is a place you're going to find thicker stuff, so I think creek bottoms are or could be key to where you might want to hunt. So let's kind of develop these points a little bit and talk about things other than F's and mushrooms.
So creek bottoms are cool.
Yeah.
Everywhere we go, creek bottoms are cool. What did you find out about creek bottoms in Pennsylvania?
I found out that there is a lot of food in the area because trees can't actually grow in the creek, so there has to be some place that sunlight can come in a lot of times, especially if the creek bottom's wide. But there's just, it's fertile soil, and so there's growing lots of different types of forbs. I would imagine that the more nutrients that some of those plants get, the tastier they are too. So I know
to a deer.
for me, like I like tomatoes that are pretty nutrient rich. So, creek bottoms provide life essentially, and rivers as well. That's why so many big major cities are on river systems. It's a place where life overflows, man.
That's a good point, because that's exactly what you notice here on these creek bottoms is where, like, you can tell that 100 years ago people settled in cleared areas, and there's clearings like open fields there, and there's also those apple trees that we're finding. I'm assuming that some of these trees aren't like the original trees that were planted, but there's kind of like a specific variety of just kind of wild apple that grows up there, and we actually hung a camera over those things because they were deer and bears hitting it like crazy. So I'm excited to see what's on that.
Yeah, and this wasn't very far from the road, and I think that that's something that your buddy who we talked to prior that lives in the area talked about, and I think it's a good key point for us to talk about is don't be afraid to hunt near the road, which kind of takes me into my last point, which is the thicker the better. And so close to the road on the way back from the first spot we went into, went way up into a saddle and came way back down, and we got down close to the road, and it got real thick in this one little, it wasn't even a slough, it was like just a little almost drainage area that came off the mountain right there. It was low, and it had a bunch of these evergreens in the bottom of it. It was thick, and there was rubs like crazy. So I think, if I was going to put all my points together, near the road, thick, and with a creek bottom, really that creek bottom was in pretty close proximity to that where that buck was apparently bedding. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's kind of why we set a camera there, because we knew that there'd be a lot of deer there, which we were surprised at. And then also to go along with your thicket mentality, we sought out these timber cuts that were on the onyx layer, and we showed up to those, and yes, they were indeed timber cuts. But the weird thing about Pennsylvania, at least in the Allegheny National Forest, is that they're doing like some fencing and stuff and you probably saw that in video, but it's like a high fence, right? That's kind of restricting how much deer can actually go in and eat the successional growth that comes up. So it's, to me, counterintuitive. I'm sure that there's a biologist there that has a really good explanation for why they do that. I got on the line and figured out that's exactly what they're doing. So I guess the big point of that is that you can't just trust that there's a timber cut there and that, deer are going to get in there and really, find stuff to eat, because food sources are important in this area because there's no ag, right? So they're going to go look for apples or acorns or forbs and, new growth and stuff that they can eat. Well, if there's a fence there, they can't get to it. So it's going to take a lot of boot scouting to figure out the timber cut thing. And I think that's why we kind of pulled out and decided, okay, those apple trees we found, that's the place to hang a camera and possibly the place to kill a deer, especially like in October when those apples are still good.
Yeah, for sure. We kind of had to eventually resort to kind of go with what mentality. And so I think the good thing about whitetails is, like you always like to say, a deer is going to do deer things no matter if he's in Pennsylvania or out in Nebraska or down in Texas or whatever. So there are things that deer like to do, and we know that creek systems are something they like to use. So with that in mind, I think we should go to the maps and look at a couple of other spots that we might focus on if we were to go back in the future and talk a little bit about what else we found. So with the creek bottom theory in mind, I came in here and started looking for creeks. And one thing you can do here on OnX to find creeks easier sometimes is to pull up just the topo map, and you can see these blue lines right in here that show you where creeks and river systems are, which if you go to hybrid mode you can't see sometimes. Now here we are in pretty hilly country, so I can follow these topo lines and understand that these are all dipping down, dropping into a creek here. So but some people that doesn't make sense to very well, so that's another option for you. But with that in mind, I found this West Branch Tienesta Creek, and a couple of things I like around this creek system. Casey kind of mentioned this earlier. There are people around, and this place isn't as remote overall as we thought it was going to be. There was quite a few people around in different places within the National Forest that had people living, just doing their thing. And I think that there's a chance that this area has been developed into a lot of apples.
Apple development.
Something you like, with the development comes apples, I guess is what I should have said. But essentially, there's a good, probably food source down in here that comes from the apple trees. And then you've got all these little openings right in here along this creek system that would allow different kind of goldenrods and ragweeds and stuff like that might grow up that deer would like to be browsing on. But I don't know that you can hunt this Commonwealth of Pennsylvania DCNR land or not. I might actually spend some time hunting that if I knew that for sure. But when I look at this property, and I look at kind of the general direction of travel of deer through this creek bottom, it's going to be in this direction, kind of like that. And you find these elevation lines right in here, and you can see how steep they are. So like basically things really flatten out right in here, you know what I mean? And right in here. And you've got this big ridge system that comes down off the top, or finger ridge, it comes off the top of the ridge system up here where that road is. And then another finger ridge that comes down into here. So I can see this as being a place where deer are bedding. on these ridges right here and dipping down in this stuff and feeding at night a lot more. And then further, depending on the size of this creek and where creek crossings might be, feeding in these people's backyards where apple trees might be. So if I was to go in here and scout, I can't really necessarily pinpoint a spot. I don't know if you can hunt this, but I mean, right in here would be a great spot, I think, to kind of focus on as you start scouting. And if you're going to hunt, you know, scout your way in or whatever, that's an option as well. But essentially, I think you could definitely find deer moving in and out of these ridge systems to bed and into this creek system to eat and feed at night. So who knows what you'll find in there. This stuff is big country. I don't think it's a place that is easy to map scout and just drop a pin and go hunt there. But you know, you could definitely put some boot leather to work and make it work for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's I don't know. This property is one of those things where you could either be like, oh, I like this, this, and this, and pick you 10 different points and spend a ton of time going and figuring out which one you thought was the best. Or you can be like, deer are going to eat those apples, so let's go where the apples
Yes.
are. And that's really what I'm going to do, and that's kind of what you talked about doing, but you had a lot of sense behind yours. So we found apples right here, right? And we hung a camera there, and it's going to be bad to the bone. There's apples actually all over right in here, and there's some up in here as well, and I think there's probably even more back in here.
Yeah.
So pretty much these apples are propagating on their own, right? So there's not a ton of like human development there. You can see there's some private over here.
Can you talk briefly about like apples and crab apples and what the difference is and what they, if deer will eat crab apples and stuff like that?
Yeah, there's really not a lot of difference. So crab apples are pretty much a way to describe tiny apples. That's about the difference, okay?
Tapples.
Capples, yes. Tapples,
Tapples.
tiny apples, crapples. There's really not a lot of difference. They're not a completely different thing. They're just, they kind of grow a little bit differently. And really, most wild apples end up being crab apples just because that's kind of the nature of the apple species. Is it, whenever it kind of
all wild things, right?
Yeah.
Domestic things typically get bigger than wild things a lot of times.
Yep.
You know?
It's true. It's a good point. Because, well, domestic apples are like hybridized purposely to get certain results. A crab apple is going to naturally just be whatever survives the best. Okay, so the smaller apples means there's more seeds on the tree in different fruiting bodies. So I don't know. That's some sciencey stuff that might be a little bit too much.
But
for
the
even us to
deer and
describe.
animals will eat those little tiny ones, right?
Oh yeah,
And love
yeah,
them.
even like the tiny. So really, like there are some certain species or cultivars of crab apples that you will see out there, but in general, like most people would just refer to small apples as crab apples. Okay, so I think that these that we were seeing were probably what I would just call a regular apple. I mean, they get bigger than a golf ball. It looked like, you know. So there's a bunch of those there. The deer are going to be eating them. We already saw they were eating them. That was that down in this Camp Run Creek right here. We actually went up and did some scouting on this ridge and this saddle. We found some sign in there. There was, but this trail right here actually was way bigger than we expected it to. But here's those rubs and that thicket and stuff that you were talking about. There's a neat bench right here as well. So I think that deer are spending time on these benches and then possibly going down and eating down there at night. So with that thought in mind, further down here you can see some previous human clearings. Like this was done by people at some point in time. And that's kind of a neat thing about Pennsylvania is there have been people there since a long time ago, like probably the early 1700s. I don't know particularly this area, but in general, way more than what there is, like say in Texas, where 1840 was kind of the first time that at least Europeans spent much time down there, or I guess Americans. The Spanish had, you know, done some stuff. Whatever, history lesson, okay? But in general, I think that these spots down here, you can tell it's a little bit bigger timber down here in this creek bottom. You can tell there's a space right here that's been cleared a long while back. And then also, you go further up this thing, this Middle Hickory Creek. I actually dropped a pin there a while back because we found some trails. We didn't make it over there yet, but there's trails actually leading off this ridge down in here in this bottom. Looks like maybe some beaver dams or something going on there. Anyways, this place right here is Hickory Creek Wilderness. I'm assuming that is wilderness with a small W. Like it's not official wilderness, but it's pretty wild country. You can see that trail goes through there. Probably really cool. There's this kind of inverse property that happens on public land. People see something like that, they want to go to it, and they want to go way back there. So I would suggest not getting off in the big middle of this thing, but still maybe hunt deer that are using that wilderness, maybe down here in this little place where all these creeks come together right here. Just add a point right there, and I can't really pinpoint a specific spot, right? But I do know that 2 creeks come together right there, and there are some clearings around, and I think that there will at least be a food source of an apple tree or something else in there that's going to really hold deer and bring them in. And man, you can't beat a spot in like hilly country that has multiple creeks feeding down into it, because really that's just like multiple highways merging together for deer.
Yeah, it's kind of like the same concept around the hub scrapes that we've talked about in our public pens episodes on our podcast, which you can check out if you want to. We would appreciate a good listen from the podcast, the Element Podcast, and also make sure and subscribe to this because you can see more of these Map Scout Challenge videos in our Map Scout Challenge video playlist that we're going to link to below. So make sure to do that. Check out the OnX app as well if you don't have that. And remember, this is your element.
Live in it.